What's up y'all, it's Izzy and I'm in a little bit different location today to film because I really want to film more of my videos, especially the So You Think You Want to Build a Skoolie series in my actual bus. We are pointing this way, which is a little bit junky and gross looking, only because if I turn you guys this way I'm going to spoil a lot, and if you all are following along here on YouTube, I don't want to spoil what I have done already before I release it all. But anyways, you guys are not here for that, as I always say when I seem to introduce these videos. You guys are here to talk about the pros and cons of different buses and finding what bus is right for you. Like will probably be a staple here. A lot of times when I start out these videos, like these hypothetical videos, I will be asking you like questions and getting you guys to think, because I can't decide what bus is best for you guys. Like, I can't just flat out tell you. I don't know who you are. I don't know who's watching this video, and I can't just reach into your mind across the camera and pull it out and say, oh, here is your bus. It's kind of more or less up to you and your preferences. Before I begin, just a general disclaimer that this video is mainly going to be focusing on school buses. Well, it's only going to be focusing on school buses, so I'm not really going to talk a lot about shuttle buses or like metro buses, things like that, because I really don't know anything about the subject. I know that shuttle buses are often categorized in the same kind of like, the smaller shuttle buses at least, in the same category as like short buses a lot of times. But other than that, I'm not very knowledgeable about it, or trolleys either. So this video is going to be specifically pertaining to school buses. If you were looking for something else, I'm sorry, I just don't know about it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. I think there are 3 factors that are dependent upon your lifestyle and what you plan on using your Skoolie for that will really go into determining what size bus or what type bus you end up getting, and personal preferences as well. So a lot of things past this video you might have to do a little bit of research on to try to grasp it yourself, but I hope that you can walk away from here today at least knowing generally like probably what size of bus you need, and maybe a little bit about what you are preferring over the others. So like I said, questions. So you need to first and foremost ask yourself like how many people are going to be in this bus, or how many how many people, how many objects. I think I referred to people and pets as objects in another video. Oops. But how many people and how many pets are going to be in this vehicle and on the road? That will have a huge factor in determining what size bus you need, because obviously if you have like 3 kids and a big dog, you aren't going to want to buy a short bus and try to travel across the country. If you do, please let me know how that goes. But if it's just you and maybe a cat or something, you might be okay with like a shorter bus. And then of course this also plays hand in hand with deal breakers. So like, what are things that you need, that you want in your new tiny home or your Skoolie to be taking with you on the road? Like, what are things that that are staples that you have to have? Like, do you have to have a bathroom? Do you care less about a bathroom? Do you want a full-size kitchen? Or are you okay with cutting down on some of the kitchen area? Do you want an actual bed, or are you okay with having just a small like bed that you use as a couch and a bed that you have to like fold up and out if you wanted to make it into a full-size bed? What would make you feel the most comfortable? What is your personal preference, and what would you like to have on the road? So maybe like size and deal breakers aren't that big of a deal for you. Deal breakers aren't that big of a deal though. But you are concerned with navigability. I don't know if that's a word or if I just made it up, but basically you're concerned more or less with like being able to navigate a bus and being able to get around in a bus. In that case, that might go ahead and narrow it down to you that you don't want anything bigger, so you're going to go with a smaller bus, whether that be like a small like shorty or a shorter mid-sized bus. So that'll help you narrow it down really quickly, and then you can get creative with things if you have some deal breakers that come up for you. And last but not least, I think one thing that I like to focus on a lot that I don't know if a lot of people think about is budget. So don't think just because you're going with a smaller bus that you're going to get it cheaper. In this case, what I've noticed, smaller buses tend to be more expensive than larger buses, especially shorties. Like, you can get a full large bus anywhere from probably the mid-thousands up to like $3,000 depending on the year and how many miles and stuff that it has on it. I guess some of them go for 4,000 or 5,000 sometimes, but for the most part they usually stay in the lower range. While on the other hand, short buses tend to go at least for $3,000, if not upwards of $5,000 to $8,000, like easy. Like that's just something that happens all the time. My papa's looking for a short bus right now, and he has a stricter budget, but he understands the realistics of like the booking value of it. He wants to use his to pull a travel trailer with, so some people do that. I've seen other people do that. But he's being really realistic. He knows like what he's getting himself into by wanting to get a bus. Now, if any of these things come off-putting, like if you are conflicted because you're like, oh, I need these things, but I'm not sure like how small of a space I could fit this in, or I'm not sure if like I get a small bus, if it's all gonna work out. Well, stay tuned for my video. It's coming out at the beginning of next month, and it will focus on planning a Skoolie. So I'll break down some of my tips and tricks on how you can plan out various sizes of buses before you even get them, with pretty close measurement-wise. Yeah, and that'll just really help you guys, I think, figure out to a T like what size bus you really need. Now, with all those questions aside, since you guys are thinking about those things, I can start giving you some information on school buses themselves that'll hopefully help you come closer to making a decision. There are two main types of buses. There are dog nose buses, which is the bus like mine, and then there are flat nose buses, which are the buses that have flat noses, of course. And within flat nose buses, there are two types of those. There are pullers and pushers. I will get to explain the difference a little bit later. But basically, the difference between dog nose and flat nose buses is just that, like, one of them has nose that protrudes like a normal vehicle, and the others have flat nose, so they're flat, and the front turning wheels are behind the driver's seat. So when it came down to deciding for me, I knew that driving a bus was going to be a new adventure, and I wanted to keep that adventure as like on the safe side as possible, since I was already getting a manual bus and I don't know how to drive a manual. I felt more comfortable like being able to turn the wheels like I would in my normal car. Now, in the case of a flat nose bus, your wheels are behind your driver's seat, which means you have to actually go past the turn before you start turning. Now, my grandparents assure me that this is something that you get used to really quickly when you're driving a bus, especially if you have experience driving an RV where the RV wheels are directly underneath your seat. But that was just something that I felt like was a little bit too much for me, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that venture or not. The thing that seems to make flat noses really popular are the pushers. So as I said, I would explain. Pullers are flat noses with the engine in the front, so they pull themselves along. When pushers are flat noses with the engine in the back, so they push the engine along, sort of like a trolley would, I guess, per se. And I think that a lot of people prefer those because I think they're a lot better. Maybe, I don't know if they're better on fuel mileage, but they're more efficient at getting up hills and such. But I know, like, with inclines and stuff, it can be really hard to get buses up hills, and I think that's why people tend to prefer pushers. I could be wrong. If you're someone who has a strong opinion towards pushers, or you just have an opinion that you prefer pushers and you would like to inform us below why you prefer a pusher, that would be greatly appreciated, so you can go do that in the comments. Beyond just the logistics between having a dog nose and a flat nose, there are all different sizes and types. I would say sizes, types, and styles. I mean, it's not quite that dramatic, but there are a lot of different sizes of school buses, so like they can fit to all your needs. So a lot of ones that I see that are like a lot like popular for people who are solo, or like, you know, maybe like that one difference between van life and school bus life, are the Shorties, or the short buses, because I think they're so easy to navigate and they're so familiar to people. And short buses too, they come in either gas or diesel engines, so if you were more comfortable, say, having a gas engine than a diesel engine, that might be more of an option for you. But as I'd said before, like, they're a lot more expensive than some of even like the mid-size buses that are smaller, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, when you move on up, I call like a mid-size bus anything that's like 25 feet, which is like what mine is, and smaller, just because there aren't like a full-size bus. I think a full-size bus maybe like 12 windows, 8 to 12, or 10 to 12 windows. I'm talking in terms of windows instead of passengers, because depending on whether a bus is used by an elementary or high school, they might list the passenger differently. Like younger kids could set 3 to a seat, while older kids can only set 2 to a seat. So it's kind of like a, you know, hit or miss kind of thing. Like windows is a better judge of length. But they even come a lot smaller than mine. Mine is an 8-window bus, but I've seen them all the way down to like 4 and 5 window, I think 4 and 5 window buses, and still be at the same height, in terms of like, it's not like a shorty, it's not sitting low to the ground like a vehicle, it's like up like a bus would be. And then you get into like your bigger buses, which is what I call the regular size buses. As I said, they're like anywhere from 12 windows, they might be a little bit bigger than that. I have a subcategory in terms of like there are big buses, and then there are like the extra big buses, and usually the extra big buses are like 40 feet. Like I know some of them get like 41 feet. Those are just like huge. They're usually flat nose buses, and they have storage underneath already, which can be enticing, but just know like you're not going to be able to take a 40-foot bus a lot of places. They're really big and they're really hard to move. So unless you're experienced with driving a bus or really extra good at navigating large vehicles, I would not recommend a 40-footer. Unless you have a very large family and that is what you need. I would not recommend saying, oh, extra space. That's not something you should do. But if you want to, by all means, I cannot stop you. So something to keep in mind along with length of a bus, so like size of a bus, is also head height. I know that's another important factor. So if you are a taller person and you want a bus, have no fear, because the new buses are here. So I've been seeing it a lot more. It's a lot more common now for the newer buses to be on the market, because some of them are, well, of course, reaching their service date. A lot of buses are put on auction for various reasons. Sometimes they've just reached their time. I don't know why. Some buses don't reach their time sooner than others. It confuses me. All I know is if it's a bus and it runs and you call the garage and they say it's a good one, it's probably good. So if you are someone who needs a taller bus, if you're not fond of having the adventure of having a roof raise or doing something like other people have done, like putting a camper top like for the back of a truck on top of your bus and opening up head height, then be sure to be on the lookout for those newer buses, but be warned already that they're going to go for higher prices. That being said, older buses, they have their charm. Some people are really enjoying them. My bus personally is an older bus. It's a 1995. It had a head height of 6'1". By the time that I put the floor in and the ceiling back up, I'm sure I'm a little bit closer to 6 foot even, or like 5'9" at this point. Older buses are, on the other hand, going to be cheaper likely, unless someone bidding against you really wants an older model that has a manual transmission, which is another thing to think about. People have opinions like here or there, like talking about whether they'd rather have an automatic or manual bus. There are a lot of pros to having a manual, and there are a lot of cons. One of the biggest pros is that automatics tend to mess up a lot easier than manual buses do. But I don't think it's that big of an issue, seeing that so many people have automatic buses. This video is becoming like way too long already, and hopefully I can cut it down to somewhat of a digestible and coherent size. But as always, I make these videos for people who are starting at ground zero, or people like me who just need that little bit of extra bit of information to get them going and to get their minds thinking. If you are looking into Skoolies, if you have opinion like here, there, or yonder, maybe about like a specific brand or something, I know I didn't talk about that in this video because I'm not that knowledgeable on individual brands. Mine is an international. I've heard that internationals are really good. Are internationals the only bus that are good? I don't, probably not. But if you have opinions on sorts of things like that, please leave those in the comments down below for people to digest and think on. If you have like a specific question that you don't feel like I answered, or that I did in a incoherent way that you want me to clarify, please do leave that below. And always feel free to reach out to me on my Facebook page. You can find me in the description below, or at Charlie the Bus. And yeah, I will see you all next time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I believe there will be another video out tomorrow. It's gonna be a rough week. Bye.